Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share my favorite 11 books on creativity, including 2 that are so enchanting. I could just read them again and again. I can't wait to share those with you. And my favorite takeaway from each book that helped me truly get out of a creative rut in hopes that it might help you do the same. Book number 1 is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. So this is one of my 2 favorites in this list. This book is all about letting your inspiration lead, being driven by your curiosity, and creating what's yours to create and being brave while you do it. So my number 1 takeaway from this book is giving yourself permission to create. I love this quote from her. She says, "You have a right to collaborate with creativity because you are a product and consequence of creation." Giving yourself permission to create is so vital, especially if you grew up with negative words around creativity or around art or around creative things like not being practical. Highly recommend Big Magic. Book number 2 is The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. I first read this book when I was getting into my online business. Danielle Laporte actually referenced her in the Spark Kit. And as the title says, Twyla really talks about a lot about the importance of habits and routines and rituals around your creativity, and really how putting in that amount of effort can increase your production, and that it really doesn't have to all be about inspiration. So it kind of contradicts Big Magic a little bit, but I love that because it's letting you know that it's not only about being inspired, it's also about putting forth the effort and the routine and the habits of it. But my number 1 takeaway from this book is Twyla talks a lot about asking yourself the right questions. She says that when you're in a creative rut, you have to question everything except for your ability to get out of the rut. First, you have to see it, the rut that is. Second, you have to admit that you're in it. And then third, you have to get out of it by taking action. This will get you moving and in your creative flow again. This is definitely not a book that I'd ever pictured myself picking up, but as soon as I saw it, everybody knows the name Quincy Jones. So to hear his 12 notes on life and creativity, I was really excited to check him out. So my number 1 takeaway from this book is be open. He talks a lot about the importance of not putting yourself in a box. He recognized that he would have never ventured into all the different creative endeavors and roles that he did if he had put himself in a box. He says for him, the key to creativity is truly being open to new experiences. And as a musician, producer, mentor, and arranger, conductor, instrumentalist, TV producer, record company executive, oh my gosh, there's like 6 more titles. He was very open to new ideas and new experiences. And I love that he didn't let society put him in a box. Go Quincy. So let's do a quick overview. Give yourself permission to create, ask questions, be open. And next up, so Start More Than You Can Finish by Becky Blades, and the tagline is a creative permission slip to unleash your best ideas. So my biggest takeaway from Becky and this book is to name a thing you want to start. So in this book, she really implores you to take on new challenges and being okay with the mystery of not knowing if you will finish or not knowing when you will finish, but really rather enjoying the freshness of the journey. Because I don't know if you're like me, if you plan something out too much, there's no passion and creativity behind it. One of my favorite things is on page 50. She lists dozens of things that you can start, everything from a gratitude chain to a greeting card line. So when it comes to naming a thing that you want to start, this doesn't have to be huge, okay? Put on a timer for like 15 or 30 minutes, depending on how much time you have. Get some paper, get a pencil, start your own list, and just brain dump. Is Find Your Unicorn Space, Reclaim Your Creative Life in a Too Busy World by Eve Rodsky. Remember I said 2 of these books were so enchanting I could read again and again? This is my second one. It is so fun, and it's just bursting with creativity and inspiration. And this book is not only inspirational, but it's really practical in the ways that she advises you to kind of find your unicorn space and start creating. So my big takeaway from this book is carve out time. And her big spiel on finding your unicorn space, aka creating this creative time for yourself, it's essential. It's not just about being a hobby. It's about our physical, emotional, and mental health, and it's completely essential to us as women, as creators, as human beings. She suggests either scheduling it with yourself and being really intentional about that, or talking with your partner and scheduling time that works for you no matter how busy you are to make room for creating. Art and Fear is an absolute classic. It has been around since 1993. It's by David Bales and Ted Orland. It says observations on the perils and rewards of art making. Now, whether you are an actual artist in terms of like painting, photography, you know, all the classic forms of art that we think of or that we used to think of back in the day, or whether you are just a creator that can get in your way sometimes, please believe that this book is still so valuable and it's a total butt kicking. And if you've been doubting yourself or getting in your own way, you know, being up in your head and not making moves on something, this is such a good book. And I have another book that I'm going to recommend for that very, very soon. So my biggest takeaway from this book is really about embracing imperfection. So many of us don't start something because we don't think we're ready, or we don't think we know enough or skilled enough or have enough experience. And really, my biggest takeaway is really summed up in one quote. To require perfection is to invite paralysis. The pattern is predictable. As you see error in what you have done, you steer your work toward what you imagine you can do perfectly. You cling ever more tightly to what you already know you can do, away from risk and exploration and possibly further from the heart of your work. You find reasons to procrastinate, since to not work is to not make mistakes. Oh my gosh. When I read that, I sent that to Fred and I sent that to a friend, and I was just like, fire emoji, because I'm like, that has been me so many times. When I do something like this video or my somatics video or my psych ward video where I didn't write a script, I did it from the heart and I didn't invite paralysis and I just embraced the mistakes. I mean, it's found to have touched so many more people. So Art and Fear, highly recommend, very essential for any kind of creator. All right, next up, Inspired, Understanding Creativity, A Journey Through Art, Science, and Soul by Pulitzer Prize winner Matt Richtel. So, me and this book, we're not best friends. I wouldn't say that I would read it a second time. It's just very sciencey. So it's hard for me to get through this sort of thing, but I still have a takeaway. My biggest takeaway from this book is to change your environment. One of the ways that Matt Richtel suggests getting through a creative block is going somewhere new. It helps generate new ideas, gives you new perspectives, it gives you a new environment to check out. All of that newness stimulates creativity. I love his quote, "You are the secret ingredient to your creativity, your perspective, experiences, thoughts, and imagination." Kind of reminds me of Kung Fu Panda that I was just watching the other night with my son. They was like, there is no secret ingredient. You are the secret ingredient. Your perspective, all of it, like whatever you create, it's going to be different. It's going to be unique because you're unique and you're different. So although this was not my favorite book out of the 11, I really enjoyed that thought of change your environment. In Tom Kelly's book, Creative Confidence, Unleashing the Creative Potential Within Us All, he encourages us all to, well, just try. In his chapter, Leap, he touches on if you want to create something, you just have to start. My biggest takeaway from this book is to stop planning and start doing. Girl, not everything is gonna be just right. When you start, it'll feel good. Trust me. When I started my YouTube channel, I look back now, I want to delete those videos. But at that point, when I started, when I hit record, when I finally got myself out there, it felt right. This book is such a hidden gem. You'll notice this is the only book out of these 11 books that I own. So I first read this book when I was creating my very first coaching course, Rocket Your Revolution. And wow, like it truly kicked my butt and it really opened my eyes to this idea of resistance. And it made me realize that I wasn't alone. And we're not talking about Star Wars here. We're talking about the resistance that shows up when you sit down or when you go to do the work that you know is in your heart, in your path, in your calling to do. He talks about procrastination, victimhood, distraction, and he talks about how resistance never sleeps and it's completely ruled or fueled, I guess I should say, by fear. One of my favorite quotes from the book is, "The more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel toward pursuing it. We move beyond resistance when we are aware of it, its devices, and we get disciplined to do the work we know we need to do despite resistance." So honey, I don't know what you have been resisting. Feel free to share it with me in the comments below. Maybe it's resistance that has you thinking that you're not creative or has you thinking that your idea isn't any good. So highly, highly recommend this book. If any of these books were my boyfriend, this might be one of them. Steal Like an Artist, 10 Things Nobody Told You About Being Creative. So his big idea in this book, and I love it because it's such an easy read. Like you can read it in an hour. You feel like you're in his journal or in his notebook. And I love that. He gives you permission to realize that nothing is original. Like everything has been copied by someone else, and of course given it their own perspective or their own twist on it. So really, like, my big takeaway is start creating again. Stop getting in your own way because nothing is original. Steal from those who inspire you. Reimagine, remix, and recreate it through your eyes, through your perspective, with your skill sets. One of my favorite things he says is make things, know thyself. And I'm gonna read just a really quick excerpt for it. "If I'd waited to know who I was or what I was about before I started being creative, well, I'd still be sitting around trying to figure myself out instead of making things. In my experience, it's in the act of making things and doing our work that we figure out who we are. You're ready. Start making stuff." Austin Kleon's follow-up book to Steal Like an Artist is Show Your Work. 10 ways to share your creativity and get discovered. So whether or not you are trying to get discovered, this book is so good to help you be open to share, not be an antisocial hermit. Network, collaborate, share your work with an audience of other creative people that will support you and love you and share your work and give you honest feedback and really, love you through the process. This makes me think of the few amazing friends that I have that every time I put a new video out, they watch it, they comment it, they like it. And I felt a little embarrassed even asking them to do that at first when I started my channel, but they were so happy to say yes, and they have been so supportive and so loving, and so I'm so thankful for them. Those are my 11 books, but I have a little bit of a rant before we are done for today. Stop saying you aren't creative. You are. You are literally created by a creator to create, and it's not your purpose isn't necessarily what it is that you're creating. I truly believe your purpose is the feeling or the change or the encouragement or the love that other people feel or see or touch or experience when they see what it is or when they experience what it is that you're creating. I spent my 20s thinking that I wasn't creative just because I didn't go to art school, which that's a whole nother story, which I didn't go because it was not a practical decision. But thankfully, I married an amazing creative man that every time I've came to him with an idea, he's done nothing but support me and kick my little butt to do it, whether I felt ready or not. So sending big, big gratitude to my husband, Fred, for always being so supportive. Last part of my rant, whenever I felt like I've lost my creativity or I'm in a creative rut, there are 3 things that I have noticed that block it. The first thing is failure and disappointment. Failure and disappointment will keep us stuck in the same loops. And if we don't acknowledge that those feelings and feel them, like really give us that time to feel them, feel those emotions and work through maybe even a grieving process. And honestly, creativity and art can be that for you, right? We'll never get past them if we don't move through those emotions or move through those feelings. Number 2, perfectionism and control. It will stop you every time from being creative, from taking risks, from embracing curiosity and uncertainty, because perfectionism does not like uncertainty. So sometimes you've got to put your big girl panties on and just be okay with not knowing how it's all going to work out. And number 3 is productivity and busyness, which in the Find Your Unicorn Space book by Eve, she really talks a lot about how being overscheduled and always scheduling things, like, or never being able to like creatively recharge. Like, how are we ever expected to go after our curiosities if we are constantly busy and constantly overscheduled? So I really wanted to address those 3 things in the end of this video, just because for me personally, those 3 things were huge for me every time I've been in a creative rut or creative block. Those have really felt like they've completely zapped my creativity. My hope for you is that this video has created a clear path for you, even if it's just the very first step for you to get out of a creative rut. And I would love to hear below, what's your next step? Is it to read one of these books? Is it to start something? Is it to brain dump a list of ideas for something that you want to start? Share it with me in the comments below. I am all about growing through what you go through. So I hope this has given you permission to move forward, to stop saying you're not creative, and really just start flowing in your creative juices again. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.